So let me connect to my server. So let's create some script today. So we'll be starting with the shell scripting, and shell scripting is nothing but like we'll be writing a Linux commands in a file and use the script, right? And again, like how do you start your shell script? Your shell script will be starting with something like this. This is called pound and exclamatory, right? So this is called the shebang line. Pound, first one is called pound, which is called sharp, and the second one is called bang, and hence it's a shebang line. This indicates like you are using shell script, and here you will put the path of the shell program or shell you are calling, right? It's generally a bash shell, born again shell. There are different types of shells like a G shell, just shell and so on. But born again shell bash is more widely used. It's a pound and exclamatory. It's called sharp and bang, and hence the name shebang line. Right? Your shell script will start with this. So let's begin writing some script and see how it works. And for this, I'm going to connect to my VS Code editor. You could write your file here itself directly. I would prefer using the VS Code editor for this. I have to check this 1 second. Configuration file. So here we need to update with the DNS of the instance. I think we have seen this connection right earlier. Again, I'm showing you. So this is the system I want to connect to. So copy the public DNS, go to your VS Code editor and go to the command palette and update the host name. Here you should put the DNS of your public DNS of your instance and then the path of the PEM file. This is my PEM file. Now again, Control Shift P. You'll be connected to the host. I mean, choose this AWS server and you will be connected to your EC2 instance. Open the folder. Allow, and I want to connect to the EC2. Right? So done. We are connected, and here you could see the terminal as well. All right, so let me create some file here. Sample script.sh, right? And the file extension would be .sh. So now let's start writing some shell script. Like I said, let's begin with a shebang line, which indicates this is the shell script. Bin bash is the program that's used to execute this. So bin bash and then some line. I'm just writing some echo command. Echo command is like a print command with which you can print something or display something, like set up and configure the server. Right? So yeah, that's how you have a shell script. So how do you execute the shell script, or how do you see this? You can see the permissions of the file this way: read write for owner, read write for group, and read for anyone else. So you can run the script this way, bash and this. So you can see the line executed and it shows the display message. This is one way, or else you can also run it as an executable like this. But to run it as an executable, you need to provide execute permissions. That's where executable permissions comes in. You can use sudo chmod execute permissions for the owner. So u plus x file name. Now, if you see the permissions, you can see here execute permissions were added, and you can call it this way, sample.sh. Got it? Everyone understood? Are we good? So that's a simple way of creating a file and providing executable permission, so you can also run it this way. Now let's focus on the script, what else we can do with it. Any questions, you can feel free to stop me and ask. So here, let's say I'm just defining some variable. I believe you know what a variable is. If you are not from a programming background also, everyone would be having some idea of a variable. You can relate to this from your mathematics. You have a variable x, right? X equal to 5, you assign some value to it, right? X is a value, X is a variable, means a container to hold some value. So I can declare something like this and put some file name. I just want to introduce you to variables like config.yaml, some YAML file name, right? Instead of X, I could give some meaningful name to this. Let's say file name, right? So different programming languages like have the way of using these variables, but if you are new, just related to math, it's like a container you want to assign some value and later on use this X in multiple places so that it can helpful to store some value and reuse it whenever you need it. So how do you reuse it? Like how do you refer to that variable name? Let's say I just want to print using file and I want to print that file name. So variables are referred with a dollar prefixed. So dollar file name means it will print whatever is present in this variable, not simply just the file name, right? So this is what I would like to prefer. So what it would print, use the file config.yml to configure the server. That's what I want to print. So save this. Now execute this. See here, using file config.yml to configure the server. That's how you refer the variables. What if you don't put the dollar here? It will just print as a plain text. See here, using the file underscore name, but I don't want here file underscore name. I want this one to be used. So that's how you refer the variable. Got it, everyone? Understood?
Yes.
This is how you refer the variables with a dollar. So, and then let's say we'll have one more variable. Let's say config files. I would like to take contents of some directory here. So how do you get the contents of a directory? Let's say I want to get the contents of config directory, ls config. But if I do this, ls config will be assigned to this variable, but I want contents of ls config. So let me add here ls config. Right, so that the contents of it would be assigned to config files. Right, so config files will have the contents of it. Right, and then if you want to print contents of config, here I just want to print this config files variable so that it would print the contents of it, right? So that's what I want to print out. So where it will check for this config folder, ls config, in the same directory wherever you are running it, or else you should give the whole absolute path this way, right? Like wherever you want to search for it. I'm just saying config means it will search in the same folder, but I don't have config folder. Let's see what happens. Let me execute this. See, it says when you say ls config, it is saying cannot access no such file or directory. And it's printing the next line. And then it's showing contents of config as an empty because there is no file. Can we do something? If folder is not present, it has to create that folder and get the contents of it. Means I want it to check if the folder is present or not, right? So script has to check if the folder is present or not. If folder is present, then only run this. So how does it check if folder is present or not? That's where if conditional statements can come in, means if the folder is present. If, okay, if let's say if directory is present, then it should do this. If directory is not present, that's what is a conditional statement, if else comes in. Else, print something like config directory is not found, and then creating one. If conditional statements, if else block, if block, this is called if block. If block will execute if it is true, else block is will execute if it is false. Both will not execute. So if it is not there, create a directory. Also create a file in this directory as file2.txt. Right, and then we can do this. Right, also how to close the if. Fi is the closure for the if statement, if block. And how do you check if directory is present or not? We'll use some file operators. One such file operator is -d. It will check if directory is present or not. If this is present, then take this content. Also, let me print something like reading the config directory. Right, if it is not present, create a it. Anyway, we will read it. I can place it at the bottom. It will print this one if it is true, and it will go and take the content. If it is false also, it will create one and again take the content. Is the script clear for everyone? Understood. -d is the file operator. -d means it will check if config directory exists. If this returns true, it will go into this if block. If this returns false, it will go into the else block. Always either if or else block will execute, both will not execute. Actually, this is the syntax. Then you have then. Is this much clear for all? Any questions on the script before I execute?
No, Prati.
Okay, let me execute the script. See here, setup and configure, this is executed. Then config directory is not found because we don't have it before. So it has created it, it has created a file, and it should have this into this config files, and it should print. See, that's a content of it, right? So see, if you go to config, yes, file2.txt is created. Are we good and clear with this?
Yeah, we are good.
So yeah, so this is a simple if conditional statement. What if we have multiple conditions, like let's say, okay, something like select case or switch case, or else if you are completely new, let's say you have option A, option B, option C. If it is A, you should do something. If it is B, something else. If it is C, something else you have to do. So how do you do that? So
Elif.
that, yeah, we have elif statements we can use, like if, and let's say, okay, I'll first define some variable called user group and assigning something to this user group as a demo. Right now, depending on this user group, I just want to do something or give permissions to user kind of. So let's say user group is admin. If user group is admin, then Then maybe you may run some chmod commands to give the permissions. Here I'm just writing some echo statements, but you can write some chmod commands or whatever, change the permissions kind of depending on the checking the user group. So if you have multiple statements, you have elif. See, that's auto population, all of that is coming from the VS Code editor. And let's say if it user group is easy to user, then um, let's say configure the server. And here, let's say administer the server. Right? Close the if statement this way. Right? So yeah, elif statement. Then, oh, okay. We have one more. Let's say else, like the third option, right? Else means if it is not admin group or easy to user, let's show them as no permissions to configure the server or log into the server, whatever. Right? So depending on this user group, user group is demo. So which your statement will it print? Which block will it go? Multiple conditions, right? If user group is admin, it will print this. If it is easy to use this one, but user group is demo. So it should print no permissions. See here, right? Let's say this is admin group, right? Administer the server. That's how we can set the conditional statements. Are we clear with this block? A simple if elif block to handle multiple cases or multiple conditions. Okay. And then what else? Okay, see here we are passing these variables, right? Like file name, folder name, and this one. But let's say folder name keep on changing. It's not always config, it is keep on changing. File folder name is keep on changing always. Similarly, user group could be changing always. I want to pass those values during the runtime. Right? Means whenever I call this script, I have a different folder name each time. So how to do that? That's where we can use something called positional parameters. We can pass the arguments during the runtime. Like let's suppose file name, let it be, let's say folder name. Where is the folder name variable? Okay, here it is. So I want to use this folder name throughout, right? So instead of hard coding this, every time I'm coming here and writing the folder name, I could use a variable for this folder name. Let's say here file name and folder name or directory name. And then here I may use this. So instead of hard coding this, let me say dollar folder name. This is what I want to use. Right? Let's say my directory for some time. And I would like to use this throughout. Reading the this directory not found, creating one. Here also, here as well. Right? Here also. Wherever you are using it, let me just place the folder name. So what is the use of this? I should change only here. It could replace it throughout. Otherwise, I should change all these lines every time I have a new folder name, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places I should keep on changing the folder name. That's the advantage of this, right? Replacing this with folder variable. That's the advantage of variable. If you have to use it multiple places, I would change it only here. And again, I don't want to even hard code here. I would like to pass this during the runtime. So I may give here $1. And also I would like to pass this during the runtime, $2. $1, $2 are the positional parameters. Means whenever you call the script, the first variable you will be passed will be assigned to the one where you have given $1. Like folder name is, let's say, my directory. And then the username is EC2 user. So this is the first value, variable value. This is the second one. First one will be assigned wherever you have $1. That's what is positional parameter. Second one will be assigned to $2. Now if you run it, see here, contents of my directory is this. My directory is not found, creating one, right? It has replaced everywhere the folder name and also configure the server because I have passed EC2 user. Is that making sense? And let's say folder name is new folder and the username is, let's say, Tom. See, no permissions to found because we pass the Tom. And then see everywhere new folder is replaced here. And also that folder should be created. Yes. And if you go to new folder, there'll be file2.txt. Understood this positional parameters? See, we are learning the basics of shell scripting here. Okay, shell scripting can be used in different ways in our DevOps approach. There are multiple ways we can use it. And again, it's not that every project, every pipeline uses shell scripting. Shell scripting, today, like we were learning the basics, we'll also see how this can be used in our pipelines. We also have examples how we can use this shell scripting in our pipelines. And also I'll show how this shell scripting can be replaced. Like without shell scripting, how you can make your pipelines better also we'll see. Practical implementation and usage we will learn. I'm just showing you the basic constructs of shell scripting, like if statements, if elif statements, and so on. Understood the concept of positional parameter?
Yes, Preeti.
What if I just pass it in a reverse? Like let's say first one I'll pass it as a Tim, second one as a some actually that is a username, but let's say I'll pass it as a new directory. See, Tim directory is not found because first one will be assigned to $1, means first one will replace $1 in the script, which is the folder name. So Tim directory is created, right? And then the configure the server contents of Tim is this one. And this is new directory is considered as a group, so no permissions. So see, it has created this folder. So you should be careful when passing the positional parameters. The order is important here. We will use the script to install and run some MEN commands, and later we'll replace that completely with a script with a Jenkins pipeline. We'll see all of that. And let's say you want like pass anything during the runtime, and if you want the script to wait for the input, you could do that using read block, like reading the user input, right? That's just printing, and then read. Read command will help to take the user input. Please enter your password. Right? So it should take some input. Right? So it should print this as well. Now let's see, let's run the script and see how it works. Oh, sorry, we are in the Tim directory. Yeah, see, it's waiting for your input. right? Of course, you shouldn't use it for password, something like username kind of, you may use it. It will wait for the user input. So if you have some script where you want the script to wait for the user input, that's how you can do. Like yesterday, we have installed some packages, then started some service. All of that we have executed one by one. You could add all of them in the script here, like install or the package name, and then start the service and run the script all together. So that it will help you execute and start the packages in one go rather than running one after the other. So these are some of the basics of shell scripting. We'll go through and we'll see more once we get started into the pipelines. Any questions from anyone in this part?
Read minus p means
Hmm?
read minus p.
Minus P is like you could pass this input, means you are passing some phrase or paragraph, which will be printed here. This is the input it's asking for. A paragraph or a phrase which it should display for the user. And here we have used one file operator minus D, right? Like this, there were so many file operators. There were so many file operators. You don't need to go and learn or memorize those, but for reference, you can use this. This is a good document or a website where you have the Linux basics. You don't need to learn or by heart, but just know that, okay, there are different file operators. See here, minus B to check if file is a block special file, minus C is character special file, kind of. There are different things you can check on the files. If the file size is greater than 0 if s, then you can, it will return true. There are also examples for this, right? You could also test out if you find some time. You could also experiment them. For every concept you have file permissions, directories, file management, everything you have. You can refer this. This is added in the drive as well. You can go through, but you don't need to go into all of the parameters, all the options, but as a reference, you can use it. So that is about the basics of shell scripting. Shell scripting is not yet completed. We'll keep on using it throughout during our pipelines, wherever there is a scope. So, this is our script. If you are good, we can get started with the as such concept. Can I proceed?
Yeah, yes, please.
Right. So now let's talk about something called SSH, right? This is a Linux concept. It's a secure shell. What is SSH? SSH means secure shell. This is the transfer protocol with which you can connect to remote servers or you can copy some files, folders into the server, right? That's how you can use this as such a secure shell transfer protocol, which is more widely used. And again, this protocol can be of two types, password based and key based. Password means, you know, right? You'll have a password, so you give the password to connect to the server. Another one is key based, SSH key. So these keys are generated using different algorithms. Default algorithm is RSA algorithm, which is alphanumeric. And password based, key based authentication is more widely used because it's a less vulnerable for thefts and attacks. Password, you know, it's easy to more vulnerable for thefts, right? So key based authentication is always preferable. So like I said, it's used to connect to remote servers and then copy some commands or run some commands, copy some files. That's where SSH is used. So how do you connect to this? Let's say this is my laptop and there's a remote server I want to connect. It could be any server anywhere. Now this is my laptop, local machine I want to connect. This would be called as client machine. And here you should have some SSH client installed. What are the SSH clients? Different SSH clients. We have already used some SSH clients. If you are Windows, you might have used Git bash. Git bash is one SSH client. Like they work like an interface where you can SSH into some remote machines. Git bash, putty, mobexterm. These are all different SSH clients. If it is Mac, you have terminal, right? So any of them you can use to SSH into. That's why they are called SSH clients, right? Now, how do you SSH? So to connect to this remote server, one thing we can do is from this machine, I want to connect. On this machine, generate a key pair. Commands we will learn later, okay, how to generate key pairs. So, but generate a key pair. Key pair means you will have a public key and private key. That's a key pair, public and private key. So, so this is a public and private key pair. What happens is, like if you want to connect to any remote server, you will keep this private key here and you'll copy this public key onto this machine. So if this remote machine is having the public key corresponding to this private key, we can connect from here. It's like a lock and key concept. This public key is like a lock. This private key is like a key, like you keep a lock to our home, right? We lock it and we keep the key. If someone finds the key, even they can connect. The same is the case. You can draw some analogy in the similar way, right? So this is the private key and this is the public key. So,
So we are
yes.
generating public and private key, right? How do we pass same public key into different remote server? We should
How
pass
we
same.
learn? There are commands, how we will learn. Yes, you can pass, let's say you have one more remote server. Let's say we have one more remote server. I want to connect to using the same key. You can copy the same public key onto this machine. So because you have that same private key, you can connect to this also. But always the best practice is we'll create a separate key pairs for each machine.
So
Meaning-
for each different machines, the public key will be the same.
Give me 1 second, please. Public, private key. Okay, this is one pair. Another pair of public, private key. And this is the best practice to connect to this machine. You have got anyway this private key. So using this, you will connect to this. Right? And blue key pair is one key pair. Let's say that's one public private key pair, which is used to connect to this. And to another machine, that's a pink one is another key pair. Yes, please go ahead now.
So my question is that we are generating public private key one machine, right? So what my question is that the same public key will be used in the different remote machine to connect.
That's what is this. Yes, you can use it. That's what is a blue one. I copied the same public. See, blue public key pair is one key pair. I copied the same public key here and here. Here on server 1, on server 2 also. And using the same private key, you can connect to both of those machines. But generally, we'll create a separate key pair for each machine. That's where the pink key pair is coming.
Okay.
You can use the same key pair, but best practice is create a separate key pair for each machine and for each user. Let's suppose on this machine, I have generated these key pairs as a user 1, right? Only user 1 can connect to this. On this machine also, user 1 should be present. If I want another user has to connect, user 2 has to generate another key pairs and copy them, and means that's specific to each user and each machine. Let's not complicate the things. First, understand the actual concept. You will understand those. Is this much clear? Very simple. As such concept is very simple, but again, there'll be a lot of confusions over that. You will generate a key pair. Okay, if I want to connect, I'll generate a key pair. Keep the private key. Don't share the private key to anyone. Keep the public key on the servers. If I have the corresponding key, I can connect. Let's suppose I have one more laptop. Okay, from here also I want to connect. Maybe I could share this private key here and then yes, I would be able to connect to this. Right? or else connect to whichever. But this is not again a good practice. Create a separate key pair from this machine. Always this is the best practice. But yes, that is also possible. That's what I'm saying. If anyone finds the private key, they can connect. So private key should be secure. Is this much clear, everyone? Understood this much?
Yeah, yes,
Yep. Can I get confirmation from all of you? Everyone following? Okay. So, yeah, this is the whole concept of SH key connectivity. Now, let's talk about, we are already connecting to EC2 instance, right? But we haven't done this. So let us see like how this works. Again, this is my laptop. This is the EC2 instance. So here also the same concept, but it is doing it in a different way, in a reverse way. Meaning, whenever you create EC2 instance, do you remember it will ask to create a key pair? Do you remember you will be asked to create a key pair? It will create a key pair and it is keeping the public key and giving you the private key. That's what is the PEM file. Same concept, but it is doing in a reverse way. It is giving you the PEM file. You are storing that PEM file in your laptop. This is nothing but the private key. Actually, we'll generate here, copy the public key and keep the private key. But for EC2 instance, it's doing in the reverse. It will keep the public key and it will give you the private key. That's why you should store the PEM file using which you are connecting. That's using SSH concept, and SSH protocol uses the default port 22. That's why this port is also opened by default on these EC2 instances through which you are connecting. That's the whole concept. If anyone couldn't recollect, let me just show you quickly. Just for you to recollect. See, whenever you create instance, if you remember, see, you will be asked to create a new key pair, right? And it will give you the PEM file. Create a key pair. See, it will create a public private key and it will keep the public key and it is giving you the private key. See, RSA is the default algorithm. Encrypted private and public key pair will be created and it will give you private key file as a PEM file. That's why you are connecting. Can you relate to now? Earlier, we did not understand concept. We are just executing it. But now this should make sense. If not, let me know. So the same concept. That's why we are using private key to connect. Also, if you see the commands to connect to any instance, SSH -I, that's what SSH into this machine using this PEM file. And this as which user? By the way, the key pair is generated as EC2 user, default user. That's why you can connect as EC2 user at the rate DNS of that machine. And because that key file should have only the read permissions, we are using chmod 400. Otherwise, it will come with 640 read, write, read permissions. But it's not secure. That's why it will ask to change the permission so that it's not publicly viewable. So making it 400. We have learned those permissions by now and the concept of SSH. Open an SSH client. That's what is either open as Git bash or a putty or terminal, whatever. These are all the different SSH clients. Now, I believe this makes sense to you. If still not, if still any questions, you can feel free to ask. This SSH concept is very important in reality. There would be at times you have to connect to the servers via SSH in multiple ways. And this is the concept. Like we are connecting to from our laptop to EC2. We may have to establish an SSH connection between two EC2 instances, which we are going to do in our course. So that's why I'm giving you some understanding here. Tomorrow, we'll be starting Jenkins server and Jenkins slaves or remote machines. Like let's say this has to connect to this. How do you generate a key pair? How do you connect all of that? We are going to see. But meanwhile, this is the basic concept and that's how you are connecting to your EC2 instances till now. See here, this is the location of my PEM file. My PEM file is AWS key. So I will run this command SSH -m. This file I would be able to connect. This is the concept. And I'll show you connecting to a remote machine. I mean, establishing connection between two machines. Actually, this comes in the Jenkins part, but I'll just show you an example. And there you will understand the use case. Here, I'll just show you to understand the concept. Okay. So for this, let me take, this is my instance, like where I'm running. Let's suppose, okay, let me say this is where I want to connect client machine. Okay. Let me create another instance, Amazon Linux 2, T2 Micro, and this is also using the same key pair, AWS key pair, launched. So from client, I just want to connect to this test server, let's say. This is the client machine. From here, I want to connect. Let me switch to root. Okay, it's still coming up. Meanwhile, let me name it as test server. Yeah, if you want to see only running instances, yes, from this client, I want to connect to this test server. So let's see how to do that. This is the client machine. We will generate a key pair. But before generating a key pair, like we will use some, we will work as EC2 user. We can work as an EC2 user, right? So EC2 user is already there. EC2 user is already there on both the machines. Just let me come out of this. And let me set some password for this EC2 user. Okay, sudo password EC2 user. Sets up, oh, sorry. Okay, done. Password is set now. And this EC2 user should be placed in the sudoers file so that it would not prompt for the password. I'm sorry. Again, this should be edited as root user. This file should be modified very carefully. If you mess up with this file, your system will be corrupted. Just root user is there, right? I just want to give EC2 user all the permissions. EC2 user all equal to, it shouldn't prompt for any password. For any commands. That's what is all root to run any commands anywhere. That's what this means. So even I want EC2 user to run all the commands without prompting for password. So I have made these changes on the client machine and also as a restart. And by the way, one more thing, SSH will be installed by default on all the Linux servers. You don't need to install it, but just restart it. It will be running as SSH daemon. Right? Use sudo so that we could run this, right? I think all right. Yeah. So this is fine. Now we want to connect to this, right? Let's go to this machine as well. Here we need to make few things. Let's connect to this other machine. Let me open a new tab. This is the remote machine or test server we want to connect. Here also EC2 user should be there. Anyway, EC2 user is present here. Okay, EC2 user is anyway present here. Also, let me set some password to this user. You could do this as a root or use sudo.
So Preeti, are we using this bash terminals? This is a bash terminal?
Yes. Terminal of EC2 instance. I'm using terminal. And here one more thing we need to do. Like we discussed, we'll be using key-based authentication, correct? Even though you use key-based authentication, for the first time, password-based authentication should be used. But password-based authentication is not suggested, and password-based authentication is disabled by default on all the machines, on all cloud machines for security purpose. But the first time you need it. So how do you enable it? It is present in SSHD config file. You should do this on the remote machine because remote machine should allow this connectivity. Actually, this should be done as a root. Password-based authentication. So it is commented out. Do you see password-based authentication? Yes is commented. Uncommented. Uncomment this. For the first time you need it. Later on you can come back and uncomment it. For the first time of SSH connection, even though you are connecting through keybase, you need it. So we did this also as we made this change, restart SSHD. Start or restart SSHD. Done. Right, that's all. Now again, go to the client machine. This is the client machine. If you want to understand, let me change the tab color. Okay. So this is your remote machine and this is your client from where you want to connect. So now, yes, generate the key pair as EC2 user. I want to establish, open a connection with EC2 user. So this is the command SSH keygen. This will generate a key pair, public and private key pair. So if you run, it is saying it will store in .sh folder. It will create a folder called .sh in the home directory of EC2 user. It will be stored as ID RSA. Yes. Do you want to put any passphrase? No. So just give enter. See here, your identification has been saved in .sh ID RSA. That's a private key. This is a public key. ID RSA pub is the public key. You can see there, if you see the hidden files .ssh, and you will see public key and private key. Done. Everything is available. Perfect. Key pair is generated. Now, copy that public key. How do you copy? You can do it in multiple ways. One of the ways is using SSH copy ID command. SSH copy ID -i EC2 user to which machine? To this remote machine, right? So remote machines private IP. That's where private IPs are used. Yesterday we were talking about this, right? Private IPs could be for internal communication. They are also fixed stable. So get the private IP of the remote machine. So SSH copy ID will copy the public key into this machine. It will ask for confirmation. Yes. It will also prompt for password. That's what I said. For the first time, you need a password based. Even though it's a key based, for the first time, you need it. Put the password which we have created for it. See, it says, yes, key is added and you can SSH now directly this way. Simply now, see, I'm still on my client. Just simply SSH EC2 user @IP. Do you see prompt changed? 186, which is nothing but my remote machine. I got connected to the remote machine. Now I could run anything. I can run some commands or change some permissions, create some files, install some packages, whatever I want, I can do. This is how you can establish an SSH connection. Are we good? From my client, I am successfully connected to the remote machine, which has this IP address 172.30.142.186 is the IP address. If you want to just come back, exit. You would be back onto your client machine. right? How do we do this in the Visual Studio as it is not allowing as such? Same commands you can run here. This one. Here you can run. Okay, what I should run? 1 minute. This is how, right? From the client machine, which is 237. This is the client machine 237. Here I could do this. I got it right. See, I could SSH into 186. Understood? You can do from any terminal, Surya. Check out something you are missing. If you are
Sorry,
not.
that's what I'm asking, Preeti. You are running that SSH commands, some other terminal, right? What the terminal are you using there?
I'm using Mac, so this is a terminal.
Okay. Okay. For our
Name.
case, we can use a bash terminal also, right? I mean,
Perfect. Git bash, putty,
Git bash, okay. Okay.
If it is Mac, you could use terminal, or if you know some other such clients on Mac, you could, any client, it's irrespective whether you are using Git bash or putty. This is terminal on Mac, you could use it. Are you talking about connecting from VS Code editor to the Linux machine? You have certain steps, right, Surya, to connect to SSH. Are you following those steps? To connect to a Linux machine from your VS Code editor, here are the steps. I think it was on. Somewhere I have added those steps and I have shown you earlier. Oh, here. Okay. In Git folder, you have this. After downloading, connect to EC2 instance from VS Code. How do you do that? Okay, so you have to install SSH plugin on your VS Code editor. If you install is Control+Shift+P, open the config file, and this is how you have to create the config file. Save it again, Control+Shift+P, remote connection to the host. These are the steps. Have you executed these steps?
Not yet, Preeti. I'll do it today.
Yeah, you have to try these steps to connect.
Yeah, thanks.
Here are the steps to connect to VS Code editor in your Git folder. So where do we use this SSH connection? In multiple places, particularly like Ansible controller machine and Ansible host will be connected via this SSH protocol. And again, your Jenkins server will be connected to the Jenkins remote servers using this SSH. We'll be using this in Jenkins, Ansible, and wherever you want to connect to this, this is the concept. In our course, yes, we'll be using in distributed builds or master slave architectures. We'll be using this in Ansible. So try this out from your end, and yeah. So with this, we can get started installation with Jenkins. Jenkins, again, concept of continuous integration, differences between continuous and traditional integration, and then the CIE concepts. And then we'll get started with the hands-on. Jenkins installation, and then hands-on. Any more questions from anyone till this part? Anything from previous classes? I'm terminating these two. Okay, this is my server. I'll terminate this one. I don't need this anymore. Any questions from anyone? We shall start with the Jenkins in the next class, but if you have any questions, we can go through. Have you got the class recordings link? Have you found that in the WhatsApp group description? It is there.
Yeah, it is there.
Right. And by the way, we are not receiving any quiz submissions. I don't know how many of you are doing the hands-on and whether you are doing the quiz or not. Make sure you're completing this. We are not seeing much submissions. Till now, we have completed Git part and Linux, but again, integrating these things into our pipeline is still there, which we will do. And whatever instance you have used till now, like this is what I have used till now, you can use the same from tomorrow, or else if you want, you can terminate it and create a fresh instance for tomorrow's class. That is also fine. No queries from my side, says Ritesh. Okay, you can continue with your hands-on. You can take this time for continuing your hands-on. We'll close here and we'll continue tomorrow. If no queries, we shall wind up here.
Yeah, thank you, Priti. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. See you all tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.